Welcome to today's podcast, The Great Place to Work, where we will be diving into key elements of what separates a great workplace from a good one, and how our culture consulting services can help you take that leap. We will also explore the importance of conducting diagnostic surveys, action planning, and the role of people managers. Hi, I'm Praveena, and today I have Kaneru Godagama with me, the head of consulting business at Great Place to Work Sri Lanka. Hi, Kaneru. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Kaneru, how would you differentiate a good workplace from a great one?
Great question to start with, Praveena. So in a good workplace, employees feel safe and comfortable. The practices are in place, the policies are clear, and the organization is in a stable environment. But in a great place to work, we generally see that people are more engaged. There are trust towards the leadership team. And as a result, people also have a sense of purpose. So we see that a great place to work is where employees trust the leaders that they work for, they take pride in doing their work, and they enjoy working with each other. So the experience that employees have has to be consistent across different demographic groups in the organization. Experience has to be consistent irrespective of where the employees are coming from or what they do or where they are, the role of the work that they do in the organization. So in a great place to work culture, we see that employees across different demographic groups experience a consistently high positive culture, and it's also very inclusive. So that is what that makes a great place to work for all employees.
Exactly. A good workplace, it meets expectations. But a great workplace, it definitely exceeds them, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the culture consulting services will help organizations take that leap from being a good workplace to a great place to work.
Now let's move on to a more critical step before conducting any diagnostic survey preparation. Many organizations, I believe, they just jumped into the survey, right? But then I also believe that preparation is key.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, Kaneru?
Yes, so setting clear expectations have to be a priority. The objectives have to be clear, not just for the people who are engaging or starting the initiative, but for key stakeholders within the organization. So at Great Place to Work, what we do is we help organizations throughout the process. And in fact, even if it's a diagnostic survey, this process of communication and making people aware starts even beyond or before the diagnostic. So we identify a three-step approach or a three-stages approach. The diagnostic takes place in the second stage. So it can be in the form of an employee survey. It can even be any other form of data collection. But before we do the diagnostic, there are detailed awarenesses or communication campaigns that have to be conducted within the organization itself.
All right.
So we do that by doing detailed workshops, both to understand the expectations of the organization and also to use this as an opportunity to create detailed communication campaigns or awarenesses amongst stakeholders, like I mentioned before. And that is what that happens in the first stage. So in the third stage, which actually comes after the diagnostics, that is where we walk organizations through taking corrective action. So you need to look at your data, the findings, and understand what sort of initiatives that needs to get rolled out. So all of that happens in the third stage that comes after the diagnostic.
Okay, all right. So could you run us through maybe some of the pre-initiatives that Great Place to Work has in order to make the preparation of the employee survey a bit more easier?
So definitely. So there are two key forms of workshops that we do, and these are both master classes around creating and sustaining a high-trust, high-performance culture. So the first one is the commitment workshop. And just like the name says, is to take the commitment and the buy-in, the support of the leaders of the organization. So in the commitment workshop, our target group, the audience, or the leadership team, or it can even be the second tier management in a particular organization. And this is to really take them through the fundamentals to creating a great place to work, the methodology and the philosophy behind Great Place to Work, and also the role that they have to play as a leader in the organization in terms of driving all of these initiatives. Because if we do not have their support, none of these will be successful, right? And finally, we also focus on the business benefits that an organization will have as a result of going through these initiatives. Now, this is a standalone activity or a workshop, but if an organization is also doing a diagnostic survey as an outcome of this workshop, then of course we discuss several aspects of the survey there with the management or the leadership team as well. So the first one is to really create a sense of ownership that every leader is important and that they need to really support, and it has to be top down. That's the first workshop. We also have a second Pravina, and that is called the Ambassador Workshop. Once again, a masterclass which happens over half a day. Now here the audience is different. Our main audience there is a group of employees from within the organization. So we select employees across from, say, different departments or locations if this is an organization present in multiple locations, and to also represent different roles and grades within the organization. So just like the name says, once again, this is to create ambassadors, advocates within the organization who will support these initiatives. Now, the important part here is while we understand that it takes, accountability at the top to drive or create a great workplace, it's also a shared responsibility. And every employee's impact is important here, which is why we want to create this or take this down to different groups of employees within the organization. So the Ambassador Workshop will focus on what's in it for employees, if the organization is a great place to work, and what sort of support is required or the employees can do in order to make sure that their workplace is great or transition from good to great. So both of these are just to summarize our workshops geared towards different key stakeholders from within the organization, but is crucial before a diagnostic survey takes place, because we use this as a very detailed communication campaign as well.
So now that we've spoken about the diagnostic survey, right? What's next? Because I believe that a lot of organizations, they fumble over here. They have a lot of trouble communicating these findings to their employees effectively. So what's your take on this?
Actually, that's a perfect question you've put on there. We've seen that, we experienced that as well. So what is important is the fact that, yes, you need to look at the data, but you also need to find ways to interpret the data. We see a fundamental mistake that organizations sometimes make is that they communicate numbers or scores with employees, which is very important, but employees want to know whether they've been heard, whether their feedback is valued and will be considered in taking action. So rather than only sharing numbers, it's very important to interpret the data and communicate the insights with the employees. What is it that we've understood and what are we going to change going forward? And that also shows that their feedback is valued, and over time, this is what that really builds the level of trust between the employees and the leaders.
That's actually really insightful, Kaneru. So what other support can you give organizations once this diagnostic stage is over?
Yeah. So the culture consulting side of Great Place to Work really kicks in, Pravina, when the diagnostic survey is completed.
Right.
Now, this is where we identify the issues, the concerns as seen by the employees. And once we listen to employees, it's very important that we take steps to correct perception or gaps in perception, or even to address their concerns.
Right.
So we need to first identify root causes. And identification of root causes is very important, because if we don't understand what is driving employee experience, then it's very doubtful whether we'll be able to take the right action to address those. So identification of root causes and then taking actions to come up with a detailed action plan is one of the important areas. We also look at several other aspects depending on the findings that we gather from the surveys. So if an organization wants to go down the path of updating or fine-tuning their people practices, that is definitely an area that comes under the purview of Great Place to Work. Sometimes we've seen that companies or organizations have strong people practices or matured people practices, but they don't really cascade or translate down to positive experiences of employees.
That makes sense, yes.
And we've understood that this could be because of people managers. Now, a common misconception is that a people manager is an HR manager,
Right.
which is not accurate. any manager who has a team reporting to him or her is a people manager.
Right.
So they need to take ownership, accountability of executing the people practices that the organization has at their disposal so that their employees will have a positive experience. So we look at, just to summarize, uplifting the style of people managers, focusing on the people practices to fine tune it, and thereby improving, giving a positive experience for the employees. So those are three main areas that we work with organizations. But of course, depending on the amount of insights and the areas of concern, all of these can be customized to match the particular requirement of the organization.
All right. So what you're saying is you all can do customized workshops for any organization that requires a diagnostic survey. Yeah.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about focus group discussions?
Yes, Pravina. So focus group discussion is a mode of root cause analysis that Great Place to Work uses. What happens there is we discuss about the findings of the employee survey or this diagnostic that takes place with a group of employees from within the organization. Now, these employees can represent, say, a particular card of employees.
Right.
Can be from a department or a location if the company is present in different location. Can even be from employees of a particular role or a grade. We've also done this across different tenure groups, so genders, and representing different age categories as well. Now, the real reason that why we do focus group discussions is to talk to employees and get a qualitative finding of what they think about the organization in general.
All right. And
So-
if this, how do you gather the crowd for this?
That's a great question once again. So what we want to understand, if employees feel like there are strengths and areas that need improvement, why do they think so? What is driving their perception? So when we select employees for a focus group discussion, we look at the survey findings. So if there are groups with a high positive experience that we identify from the survey, then we can talk to that group of employees to understand what is really working well for them. So that can also be used as an opportunity for the others to learn from. But if there are groups with a relatively lower positive experience, then that is really a target group, because you want to make sure that the experience improves for them, and that starts from listening to them to identify why do they think that their current experience is not good, what is governing their perception. But while we talk about focus group discussions, and it's a common term in the industry, it's really an art to facilitate a focus group discussion.
Of course.
Because people have to feel as if they have the comfortable environment, or they need to feel that they are safe
Of course.
to really talk about some of these things. And we do this in a very confidential setting. We
Right.
make people comfortable to open up, be very authentic, and share their genuine concerns and strengths and what drives those in the organization. Now, what happens as an outcome of the focus group discussion is we give a very detailed report, and a presentation is conducted to the leadership team. That will help them take corrective action soon after the focus group discussions are over.
That's actually really interesting, Kaneru. I really like the fact that it's confidential and it's anonymous, and people can actually talk about what's bothering them or the positives. And it's not really about, it actually helps address the issue at hand, you know?
It's not the individual at the end of the day, the
Exactly.
concern that we want to address. So it doesn't matter who is talking about it,
Yes.
as long as the right actions are taken.
That's right, yes. And now that you have these insights after a focus group discussion, right? It's time for action planning, right? So what needs to be done over here?
Correct. Now, if you've done focus group discussions but has not done an action implementation, that really defeats the purpose.
Of course, yes.
What happens in an action planning, Pravina, like we all understand, is we want to make sure that, yes, we listen to employees, but we really take concrete action.
All right.
That is where the data that we've gathered translates into concrete actions. Now, when we do action planning, we start from an action planning workshop. This workshop is conducted to the leadership team. We facilitate it to the leadership team, and of course, to the second tier management and HR included.
All right.
What happens in an action planning workshop is we look at the data the quantitative data we gathered from the employee survey, and also the qualitative data that we collected from the focus group discussions.
Right, yes.
Then we go through a prioritization according to a methodology that Great Place to Work has. There we come up with a very detailed action plan.
Okay, right.
And the action plan also has people who are responsible, the measures of success, and also the timeline for each of those items. And we come up with an action plan around prioritize key areas only. Because if you try to address too many things, that once again can become an issue.
Of
It may
course,
not be very
definitely.
practical. And there is this saying, they say that what's important gets measured and what's measured gets done. So that is what we really try to do after the workshop is over. Because we don't want to come into a situation where the organization is struggling to take action, even after prioritizing and coming up with a detailed action plan, because the real work starts after coming up with an action plan. So there we have reviews that Great Place to Work team will facilitate to the leadership team, where at different touch points along this 0 to 3 months or 0 to 6 month time period where the action is implemented, we will help the organization ensure that the right actions are taken place at the right time,
Of course.
and that Great Place to Work is always there to assist with that process.
Last but not least, let's talk a little bit about building the style and capability of your people managers.
Yes. So people managers are like the conduit between the people practices that the organizations have and also the employees' experience. So without this conduit, there are always gaps that exist. You may have a stronger practice at one place, but it may not be experienced like it was intended to by the employees if the people managers are not really making use of these practices at their disposal. Now, what we do, Pravina, at Great Place to Work is we have a long intervention program that is geared towards these people managers.
Long, how would you define long?
Yes, great question once again. So we start from a diagnostic
Okay.
where we conduct a survey to identify the gaps that are there. So the Great Place to Work Trust Index survey can really help them. And once we identify the gaps, we send the people managers through a detailed workshop. This is very interactive and it happens across 2 days because we want to have role plays and opportunities for people to learn from each other. There are case studies, there are activities that they actually practice, get to practice things and learn. And after the workshop, the program will go for 3 months time period. So it's 0 to 3 months, along with several touch points that happens in between. Now, what happens after the workshop is these managers will have to go back to their teams, get the support from their teams, and implement certain initiatives in their teams, all to improve the level of trust between them and their team members. Now, this workshop is not focused on building competency of the people managers because they are competent at what they do. We want to focus on the style of leading. So instead of competency, we'll help the people managers brush up on how they have their interactions with the team. They say that every interaction between a manager and an employee is an opportunity to build trust between them. Yes, we go through day-to-day interaction, but all of this have to be positive in a good sense. So we work on improving that interactions between employees and the managers and upskill the people managers by building these levels of different competencies. Now, what happens after the program is over is they go through an evaluation. There is a 360-degree evaluation that will take place where the managers will get to hear from their peers and also their subordinates and their bosses how their behaviors have improved over the last 3 months. They also get an opportunity to present to the leadership team in order to showcase the tangible and the intangible feedback that they or the benefit that they have brought for themselves and also for their team during the 3 months time periods. So of course, while in the 3 month time period, there'll be reviews that is happening. This is an intervention that will have to continue after or beyond this 3 month time period also. There's a lot of ownership and accountability that needs to be taken place, not just by the managers who go through the process, but even by their leaders, because this is done to benefit the managers and also to benefit the organization in general.
Thank you, Kaneru. So to wrap up, today we spoke about the difference between a good and a great workplace, how to prepare and communicate survey results, the importance of focus group discussions, action planning workshops, and of course the key role of people managers.
Yes. So Great Place to Work culture consultancy services will assist organizations take this leap, transform organization culture by listening to employees and taking relevant course corrective action, and also facilitating a process and a methodology that is globally recognized to help organizations take that transformation. So we're happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity as well, Praveen.
Thank you so much for joining, actually, Kaneru. I think now we have a wholesome picture of what culture consulting is all about, a great place to work. Together, I believe we can all create a great place to work for all.